dozen years from now, they're gonna call it overnight success, except you will have already spent 12 years working on it.
That's good. That's really.
You said it first.
I wanted to also point out the commitment from RTA, the fact that, you know, we are we're running better than we had anticipated on the budget. We're gonna move $5 million to the 2019 capital budget. We had spoke about it at our last meeting, and there'll be $5 million that we've already budgeted for 2019. So there'll be $10 million that will be already set aside for this. And I think that's why it was so important to have you come today, you know, just to give that little last explanation mark on why it's so critical. And, you know, for someone like myself who lives in the inner ring suburbs, there is nothing more important to us than our transportation. Mayfield Road, the number 9 has just excited, you know, the east side for years, but when we put that transit station right in Little Italy, and then you add the health line, it has exploded our area. And then what's happened at Warrensville and Cedar, you know, everyone can see in my community. So, you know, I'm just hoping the levy passes or whatever we decide so that I get back everything on Green Road. So I know, you know, we all know, we can all point out what areas we need that little bit more to just, so I'm excited about it. I'm really, you know, pretty knowledgeable about what's going on in that area too, and it's exciting, and congratulations to the mayor and to his staff. It's exciting, and at RTA, we're right there with you as a partner. So I want to thank you. Any other questions?
Just, can you update us on the time frame as far as our investment? Somebody else.
I mean, when we're going to move forward on it? Oh, go ahead, Ponce.
Chairman Clough, as Mayor Relo said, we are going to provide $5 million this year, $5 million next year, and we expect that the station will be completed in 2020.
No, 2020, I think, is what Mike's.
2020, sorry.
That's what I think Mike's shooting for. He's not here today, but I think he said 2020.
Yes.
Okay, so you anticipate the first $5 million to start being spent next year?
Construction would start, let me see,
2020.
January 2020.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you for coming today. I know you couldn't make it at our last meeting, but we greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next is for our meeting is our acting GM is going to update us on various strategic planning and ongoing studies. He felt it was very important that he brings us up to date on what's going on, and especially the idea of the strategic planning process in which all of these other reports are going to have to kind of stream in so that we get one great strategic plan. Ponce?
Good morning,
Great job.
Chairwoman Wheelo,
Great
members
job.
of the committee and members of the board. Today I'll be providing an
I sent you a
update on
text.
various
I sent you a
strategic
text.
planning studies
Great job.
which are going on here at the authority. I'll just kind of follow up to Director Collier in that, you know, these studies are allowing us to provide information so that we can make better decisions, and as Chief McCall said, they'll help us to develop a plan that drives us into the future. So how do we achieve our mission? Fact, new revenue will be needed in the future for our organization. Another fact is successful transit ballot measures are highly correlated with the following: civic input from the board, civic leaders, MPO, customers, etc. Shared vision, and as we look at the vision that was just presented for East 79th, but we need to have shared vision with our key stakeholders where we agree on what the future will look like. Timing. Successful ballot measures usually take 2 to 3 years of planning and communicating to the constituents and to the community. Leadership from the board, agency, as well as civic leaders, and public trust. While at APTA had a conversation with the folks from Nashville, and one of the things that doomed their initiative was that the public didn't believe that they can execute on a plan as sold, and so we have to have the infrastructure for what it is we envision in the future, that we can ensure that we can communicate that we can deliver it. In our current state, this board and RTA has commissioned several strategic studies. Those estimated completions were planned for the end of this year, beginning of next year. Many of those studies are underway, and what we'll be bringing to you early next year is a strategic plan that will bring all of those studies together. So those studies are answering distinct questions that came up during the year, but we'll have a strategic plan that will try to be an umbrella and bring those items together. So why do we need these studies? To best position RTA for the future. We need them to develop a strategy and to identify champions and to learn from the community. And here are several questions that other communities have had to answer as they looked at their future. And that is, what does the public think about our agency? What do civic leaders think? Our customers, key business influencers? And what are their priorities? And we recognize that some of these priorities may compete. Span, frequency, microtransit, technology, workforce development, integrated mobility, economic development. We need to find a way to accumulate those so that we can develop a strategy that looks at the priorities as defined by our local area. The key strategic studies and planning efforts that we've embarked on or will be embarking on are the FAIR study, which has come to this board, the economic impact study, system redesign study, efficiency and operational review studies, and I'll explain the differences between those. A rail car study. We know that we have a looming decision on which rail cars to buy and when, and that's going to be a huge capital cost. And then we'll be also talking today and bringing to the board early next year a strategic plan. So this is the way that our team is sort of conceptualizing these studies. And so we look at the 5 pillars, and although there's 6 studies, we're calling them the 5 pillar studies because they're answering several questions. First is our FAIR study, economic impact system redesign, service efficiency, and organizational review, as well as the railcar study. But the umbrella, the roof on top of the house, will be the strategic plan, which will create the foundations for the future for our organization. So I'll provide an update on each one of the study categories. For the FAIR study, this study is currently in progress. It's being conducted by LTK Engineering Services, and the goals of the study are these 3 broad categories: to evaluate the current fare structure, to evaluate the impact on fare increases on ridership and revenue, the elasticity of demand, to evaluate the impact of potential fare increases on low-income populations. And this study will be due to RTA in the first quarter of 2019. The next study is the economic impact study. It is in progress. It is being conducted by Cleveland State University. The goal is to quantify RTA's economic impact on the region. We're currently working with the CSU team, providing information regarding our local expenditures, as well as our service characteristics. CSU will take note to make correlations between RTA and its effect on job centers, education centers, health centers, as well as socioeconomic analyses. And the draft report is expected to us in January of 2019. The next pillar is the system redesign study, and the current status of that is it's being advertised. The goal is to review the current system and service design and to make recommendations for improvement. The consultant will provide recommendations under various revenue scenarios, and so if we have more money or less money or the same money, what system design would be optimal for the organization. And what the process will include is public engagements, 2 charrettes, and in-depth data analyses. And we expect award of this to be in December of 2018. As many of you have heard, we have engaged GCP, and they are engaging the business community on our behalf to come in to do an efficiency study. The GCP has already gotten responses from professionals at the Federal Reserve, Sherwin-Williams, Tri-C, Eaton, and they're going to help to provide a high level of efficiency-related recommendations for us. We're planning a series of presentations and facilities visits later this month, and they expect to provide a report in January of 2019. The next one is new, and it, I think, is a very important aspect. In several of our meetings recently, as well as in the county study, people asked us to really get down and make sure that we are operating at a high efficiency. And so RTA has heard this and will take and fund and bring to the board an RFP for an in-depth external analysis of all of our operations. We expect that we'll have an RFP in the fourth quarter of this year, and that goal is to provide in-depth roadmap for reducing and increasing revenue. So as individuals think about opportunities for revenue increase, we answer the question of how can we reduce the cost so that we're not just passing on bad management behaviors to the public and having them to pay for it, but instead we'll have an authoritative study. This will be similar to KPMG, McKinsey, and E&Y studies performed at other transit agencies. And we do have copies of the E&Y study that was done at SORTA in Cincinnati, as well as the KPMG study that was done in Atlanta. And it was a very good study that provided a good roadmap for them as they went out to their community and asked for assistance. The next one is one that we all recognize as important, but it also is a pillar to help us to develop our strategic way forward, and that is the railcar study. It is currently in progress, being conducted also by LTK Engineering Services. And we asked that consultant several questions, but the root of it was to help us to prioritize LRV versus HRV railcar replacements. The question there is, if we don't have the money to replace all 70, 75 cars at one time, which one has the largest remaining life and which car should we replace first? And then the second piece is, if we have to extend the life again, what are the maintenance solutions that are necessary to extend the current life of our current cars? And so we want to have that so that as we look at the future, we can understand the timing as well as the priorities necessary for the rail car replacement. Our current cars are over 35 years, and they present challenges when it comes to parts availability and maintenance, and the need for technology to be reverse engineered. And they're looking at this, LTK is looking at these items, and will come back with a report for us. That report is expected to us in January 2019. And then comes a presentation and a RFP that we will be drafting early this month, and that is the strategic plan. Some of you may have read the last strategic plan, but it was done in 2010, and it was a 10-year strategic plan. It had several items of importance in that plan, where it defined priority corridors, looked at transit propensity in neighborhoods with low and high density. But now we have an opportunity where the strategic plan will connect the 5 pillar studies to an overarching strategy. The current strategic plan sunsets in 2020, and it's imperative that we take this time to develop that plan such that it provides a way forward, it provides a foundation for the future for our organization. And so that RFP will be drafted for release in early October, and expected board contract award in January of 2019. The planning efforts will include, and we have heard and understand both here locally as well as throughout the nation, a lot of public engagement, asking our civic leaders, the community and riders, and get an idea as to what items should be prioritized. We recognize that there will be scarcity, but when we come up with a plan, it's our expectation to have received collaboration with the community so that the plan reflects the needs of the community. There will be board engagement to ensure that this board has a direct link into what that strategic plan will look like. And we'll also be creating technical steering and stakeholder committees where we plan to work with individuals within the organization as well as community leaders outside of the organization. And the plan takes about 8 or 9 months, and so the expected return of that will be January of 2020. So what does this mean for our staff? And it provides an opportunity for us to create some goals. And the major goal is that it's imperative for us to provide near-term financial stability. And that is that it will be our goal in November to present to this board a budget that allows us to fund our current operations through 2019 and 2020. And we want to execute on that budget such that that plan and time horizon is strong and steady. And why must we do this is that we believe that we need to give this board and this community the time needed to develop a unified plan forward. We have to complete the 5 pillar studies. We have to allow for civic discourse and input, board deliberations, coalition building, and a strategic plan that is a foundation that is believed and is unifying our region. And then we also have to provide time for a permanent CEO to be identified to help sell this plan to the community. This is just a picture of what the last plan, the cover looked like, and it was called Reimagine RTA. There will be an organic nature to define what the next plan would be, but it just sort of gives you an idea of what the strategy plan could look like, and it's very portable, and so it would allow us to create priorities and take them out to the community and speak about what RTA plans and how it links into the community. Our conversation with Drive 105 and East 79 are those links that are happening in the background, but this plan would help to identify them for our organization. And with that, Madam Chair, I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Mayor?
Just a couple quick questions. I think, those of us that are mayors and involved in running our organizations all recognize that if you're not putting long-range plans in place, you will fall behind because you don't have a roadmap and you're kind of jumping from priority to priority without any clear direction. But moving forward, once these plans are completed, what would be helpful for us as a board is if when we are given a project or a presentation or a piece of legislation or a purchase, how that piece of legislation or initiative fits into one of these studies,
Okay.
so that we have something to reference back to as to why and what our guiding principle is on that particular program.
It makes a lot of sense.
Valerie?
I turned that thing on.
I just want to say, first and foremost, that this was good. I thought it was a good, succinct presentation in terms of where we are and where we need to go. It would be good if we can get this shared with the entire board. My only request is, you mentioned a KPMG study and an EMY study, that it would be good if we could get copies of that, just to read ahead of time, so we know what to anticipate, because we haven't done this at this level before. And then lastly, you said it, I just want to highlight why this is very important. One, I want to talk about the rail car study and the timing of that, and why that's extremely important. Not to delve into details, but if you look at where future FTA funding is going, we will not see it in light rail projects, and we will see it in rail projects potentially, but rail projects that think outside the box using future technologies yet to be defined, right? There's all kind of stuff out there, trackless tracks and some other things. And so it's important that we understand what's out there. And then two, Mayor Elkin said it best, all these studies connect some kind of way. All these studies, in my opinion, there's a lot of external relations stuff to this. There should be an overlay to the committees moving forward, where we should be aligned so that it's not making up the agenda, it's really following this plan to overlay that agenda, so we, one, continue to get feedback here from our public, but also two, that we use this in a way to ensure that we're having the right kind of conversation. The only thing I'm asking, if you don't mind, is I don't think we want to get this at the last minute. It should be a notice to the board in terms of, hey, we're doing this public meeting tomorrow at noon.
Yeah.
So I want us to sort of kind of be a part of that and help to shape what that looks like. And then lastly, President Clough, I think that, as you know, we had done retreat last year or the year before, the first time we went deep into the retreat. It would be, in 2 years, it would be really, really, really good if we could do that again in the upcoming year. Maybe sometime in that first quarter, where we just get a deep dive like we did as board members before, because a lot of this connects back to what came out of that retreat 2 years ago. And the good thing about that, I think we touched some of those dots along the way. This now takes it full circle, and would be good to use that time to delve deep into all these 5 pillars of studies moving forward. And I think that would be a good way for us to just stay connected and stay engaged.
I would concur. I think many know that we had a retreat scheduled earlier this year, but it was postponed because of other circumstances. So I think we can get back on track. Now, could you explain, if you don't mind, could you explain the difference between the in-depth operational review and the efficiency study?
Yeah,
It seemed like they sort of overlap.
So there will be some overlap, but the GCP study will likely be a higher level study, a higher level review, looking at, I envision that what will come back will be sort of high level ideas. The in-depth review gets into the weeds. So an example that I could imagine would be the difference is that the E&Y study may say, look at the way that you use supply chain. The E&Y study may say, these aspects of your supply chain are inefficient compared to the market. And so we'll take the high level and we can start to move forward on it, but the expectation is that the E&Y study, and we'll share with you the KPMG study, will get granular and provide that roadmap that says fix exactly number 4, not just the broader places that you can have significant savings by revamping the way your supply chain works. And so, we have a commitment from the GCP. We surely want to invite those folks. Some of the titles, and I have an email with some of those titles, they're CEOs and chief human resource officers. And so I believe that'll be a higher level. What we want, and I think what we need, is attack number 7. And that's what the more in-depth E&Y study will bring.
Okay, I was just noticing that based on what you provided, the efficiency study would be done in January, if it stays on task, in 2019. And we're just going to develop the RFP the last quarter of this year, so they're somewhat concurrent, but not very much.
Yeah,
because of the timing.
Yeah, we have to write the RFP. We are in the process of obtaining the RFPs from MARTA in Atlanta, which did one of the more authoritative views of these KPMG type and McKinsey studies, as well as we're in the process of obtaining the RFP that was used at SORTA in Cincinnati. Theirs was a revenue-based conversation. And so we're going to review those, mesh them out so that we get exactly what we want.
Okay, the only concern that I had is if you wanted a larger picture with the efficiency study and you wanted some of that included in the RFP, you may have to sort of wait till it's done.
Thank you.
Right.
Valerie?
Just one more point, because can you go back to the slide that was just up? So on the efficiency study, I just want to, caution may not be the right word, but I know we had a lot of discussion around GCP doing a study for us, and we talked about that at the board level, and I don't know where we went with that. I thought we were going in a different direction. I just want to caution that one of the things that RTA has to do is speak to the business community directly too. And I think we have to be mindful that all the members of GCP don't represent all the businesses in the community. There's a lot of small businesses, and so I don't want us to get stuck in an area and just say, okay, GCP is doing that for us. No offense, as a board member, I don't know if any of my other colleagues have been contacted by GCP on this, but what are they doing for us? It would be really, really good to maybe have them come and present at one of our committee meetings in the future, just so we know what's going on with that particular study, given that at the board level, we did have some discussions around that one in particular.
I agree.
Okay. The Operational and Planning and Infrastructure Committee will be closed. And who's gonna chair the?
Cheryl, do I officially have to announce that I am appointing myself as a member of this committee? All right, so be it. Roll call.
Mayor Club,
Here.
Elkins.
Here.
Mayor Norton, and Mr. Serrano. Here. Mr. Chair, we have 3 committee members present.
We only have one thing on the agenda. It's the presentation on the HRV trucks and wheel procurement. Go forward.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Sean Thompson. I'm the Rail District Director. I'm here today with Ted Pickett from Procurement. We're here to present on the heavy rail vehicle truck rebuild services contract, which is in support of the rebuild effort at the district. I'd like to start with the bottom line up front. A heavy rail vehicle truck rebuild service contract is needed to return the fleet to full revenue service strength. And I'd like to orientate you a little bit first. The trucks, there's 2 trucks per vehicle. These truck assemblies hold the axles, the wheels, the motors, the brakes. When we go to replace wheels on one of these, we have to take it off of the train, you have to unmount the wheels, and we have to press new wheels on new axles, put them through gearboxes, reassemble the entire truck, and put it back into the train. It's roughly a 2-week process. We have a total of 40 HRVs that operate on the red line. Currently, we have 16 of those that are out of service right now in a long-term down status, needing new wheels. Our re-wheel rate in-house is approximately 2.2 HRVs per month. The crews are working hard. We've been putting a lot of overtime in. But from March to present, we've had an attrition rate of vehicles going out of service due to small wheels of approximately 4 per month. So we've been a little bit falling behind. We've used our short wins as far as we've identified opportunities where we could bring other cars back into service that were down, like with a motor repair that might only be 2 to 3 days. We've turned all of those around, and literally at the district now, we just have a list of vehicles that have nothing else wrong with them other than they need new wheels. Our strategy at the district is we created a second shift. This is in an effort to double our production. We're currently staffing more mechanics and positions to make that shift effective. We've been scheduling overtime. We've made a number of process improvements to allow one crew to leave a truck and another crew to pick up the wrench and continue on, so that they can pass that knowledge from one crew to the next crew and work effectively. We've also looked at ordering parts in advance so that we have all the necessary parts on hand to restore a truck to service on an HRV as quickly as possible. And the last piece of our strategy is this truck service contract. We have sent 8 trucks out under previous contract, and we have the results from that. In August to September, we received back enough trucks to put 5 HRVs back into service. That's more than doubling our in-house production rate. This new contract will result in approximately 32 HRVs in service by the second quarter of 2019. We're presently at 24 HRVs. Ed's going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the contract.
Good morning. Invitations for bids were issued July 23rd, 2018. IFPs were downloaded by 23 interested parties. 4 responsible bidders bids were received on September 6th. There was a 0 DB goal because of lack of qualified DB firms. Bid summary. GCRTA was the lowest bidder at $10,214 a car for $265,574.14. As you can see, we had 4